So the Californian thing, I don't think anyone realizes that talking about kicking them out of America is some sort of, is an old thing. I think everyone thinks that's some new thing. In fact, I know that because when I found it out, it was some new thing, and that was 10 years ago. And I found that out. I mean, it was a while back. It was at least over 5 years ago, probably closer to 10. And probably was 10. But I knew, like when I seen that, I was like, wait a minute, they're hiding this. And then I knew right then that it couldn't have been just 5 to 10 years ago that this idea first came up, and they have obviously been hiding this for a long time. But in California news, they were talking about it like it was some thing that people have been discussing for a while. They made it look like the north of California, you know, pretty much like the Silicon Valley, and we know who controls Taquatapia. It made it look like the Silicon Valley were the people, you know, who wanted to break off, and apparently that must be in the north or something. And so when I first read that, I knew, first of all, that it was unheard of, like anywhere. Like no one had mentioned this. No one in the north had mentioned this. And I mean, no one to the East Coast had mentioned this. Probably no one to any north area besides California. North California had mentioned this as well. It was something that the media was hiding and not discussing. So I instantly, you know, thought back to Dr. William Pierce, and then reading all the other books at that time as well. You know, from the older people. Like even that Siege book recently, James Mason, even reading that, people were already discussing how California was just like a shithole and you know, not very good because the stuff going on. Okay, so yeah, looking back, reading those people's stuff back then, you can tell there was already people discussing that, but the other 49 states media was not discussing it. And of course, you know, we know why they don't discuss certain things, because they want to hide it. Like obviously, you know, video I posted yesterday, that wasn't the first video showing that all the media is saying the same stuff. It's orchestrated on what they can say and what they can't say. And the media also has, if you've ever traveled or you've ever attempted to see other states' media, even other cities' media, while you're in your own state, you can see they use those media control laws to prevent you from seeing the news in other cities and states. And that's another thing is we have no idea what they're hiding from city to city, state to state. And because they have these levers of power and control, it's got nothing to do with advertising or anything like that. It's got everything to do with the fact that they want to hide what they're showing you, you know, across the board, and what they're hiding from you across the board. And this is one of those things, the California issue. People have just been talking about getting rid of it for a while, kicking it out of the union. And like, I mean, there's been no debate over it because they've been hiding it. You can have the debate right now. You can start to talk about, there's only really one debate. Hey, you're going to lose a large landmass. I mean, that's destroyed, but the thing is you're going to lose that seaport. And that's like a really, that's like a really bad thing. I don't think anyone really cared about that or thought about it. But it's a really bad thing to lose that. That's a strategic location for America. to not only have access to, just the port water, but there's a whole country of trade over there. And, like half the world's on that side of the map. It's easier for them to get to you and trade and all that. But I think they've sold most of those ports to the Asians anyway. So it's like, it's not even your ports. If the Asians own them, they're not going to let hooligans overrun them. I mean, they'd probably bring over a tank or something if you succeeded California, to protect it from the other people there, the riffraffs and all that. And I mean, that's really what you're losing. It's a big loss. I don't. That could be a devastating loss to lose the entire seaboard over there. But you still have Washington, and I think is Oregon over there? Is that what's over there? And I suppose they got some seaports, but California's the central industry over there, the center of industry. I can just assume that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, considering it's the center of the Hollywood stuff. It's vital for them to have the center of industry right there in the place that they advertise as one of the world's best places to go to. It lose a lot of money to have the industry up in Oregon or Washington. But you wouldn't be completely losing it. But at the same time, you drop that off, you're inviting a wider battlefront for them to be in there. But I'm not even worried about keeping America. I don't know how realistic that is, because every place is ran by them. It seems. I can't prove this yet, but I can prove to you my city is. But there's a reason for them to be here. We're the 14th largest city in the empire of the world, so we probably are a really big city. But no one here realizes this. They say no one knows math, but no one around here definitely knows math, and because no one knows math, no one's ever done the math or the research except for me. And apparently they don't read and write too much around here either, so they've never done the research, and you never hear anyone talk about it. But it's a way larger place than these people act like. You associate with these people, and if you come to a small area of this place, you'll think it's a small area just from associating with the people. But it's not a small area at all. Like I said, 14th largest in America. And they have control of us. That's another video I can do, showing you, or discussing, whether I choose to show you through, whatever documents and images I've got. That's always a little more work than just jumping in here and getting stuff done. And I do have a lot of that. I do have some of that done, where I work on it, but I kind of change the methods around a little bit, how I do it, and then editing becomes a chore, and editing destroys the video quality as well. And then it makes the video file so much longer. I've got videos that take 2 days to upload, and I'm like, fuck that. My computer will crash, and at 1.5 days it will magically crash. My computer magically crashes if I do long extended things on it. Especially we're talking about uploading videos like this and editing videos like this and running security systems. That's one of the oddest things. It'll crash no matter what security system I start running. External household security. If I leave it running too long, it will magically crash. It's almost like if I got to leave the computer on overnight, it gives time for people to get in there to fuck with it and to crash it. Because other than that, I'll pop up some software. If my computer starts running weird or slow, I pop up software to monitor my connections and stuff to make sure I don't see anything too weird going on. And with Microsoft, and Intel, Talpiot, I don't think you even need to see anything. They'll just hide it inside a Microsoft process. But the California thing is not new. It's Californians know this, but you don't if you're not in California, because they've been hush-hush about it. And I forget how I came across it, but how I think I was just, trying to lay out plans for the future to see where this nation's actually going. And I was looking more into the intellectual side, the port loss, and searching for documents relating to losing the port and things surrounded that. I believe that is how I came across this information, was Google's, like, no one's discussing the port thing, so I was the only one thinking of that at the time. There's no media on that. But this ain't a new thing. So that video I made about just forget California, this ain't a new thing. This is an old thing. The old Republicans have been discussing this since the 70s, 80s possibly. I suppose it goes back as far as the 60s. And if there were any aware like Rockwell, I assume he would be discussing that, because he would have known who controls, California, who controls Hollywood and all that. He must have been aware. If he was aware enough to be this great leader that everyone talks about, then he was aware of that for sure. So he was probably talking about, kind of like, California. And he would have been one smart enough to discuss, actually losing those areas. I'd be surprised if Dr. William Luther Pierce didn't discuss that as well. Hell, I'd be surprised if low-key other people, on the other side of the pond, like Professor Griff and all that, haven't discussed California as well, because why wouldn't he know? First of all, he's over there. I suppose groups like La Raza already know that that's been discussed and they feel like they're winning or something. But, I mean, America's not, not going to keep winning at the rate it's at, because it's become a laughing stock. Like, Russia's laughing at you. I mean, wait, if the Asians ever show any sort of emotion towards you, that's going to be really bad, because that means they've come out of stealth mode. So don't expect them to laugh anytime soon. But definitely the Russians are making a joke of this fucking nation. And they aren't making a joke of the nation. They're just making jokes about the joke of a nation. It's so dysfunctional, and the government thinks it's going to fix everything, and the liberals think the government's going to fix everything, and the Republicans think the government's going to fix everything, and at the same time they're all saying that the government's like poisoning everything, and they're all right. The government is poisoning everything, and maybe it could fix something if it would work properly, rather than try to poison and exterminate the people of the whole world. I mean, you got to get your act together and stop killing everybody else before anyone cares about you. Before God wants to care about you, you got to get your act together and stop poisoning his other children and killing his other children for your own profits. You've got to, I'd worry about that first. That's what you can tell that's not only the right answer for humanity, that's the right answer because they'll divide, the beasts who rule over us, they'll divide the people and they'll use their love of their self and their ego and their own inflated happy life position to to slide in an agenda with that. Be like, oh, it's so great. It's do this, do that. And then low key, that's like something that's, working against the betterment of the world. And as much as they claim they're globalists, they want to run the globe. They don't want to care for the globe. They don't want to care for the people in the globe. Most of these people want money in their pocket and they want to control the globe. They're not looking to spread peace through cluster bombs and shit like that. It's probably not the correct answer to how you spread peace is to create more war and division. It's probably the exact opposite. You probably got to try to find it inside yourself first before you can ever do it. And I can tell you, you can just tell by the look on some of these politicians' faces, they aren't trying that. But the California thing, it's not new. Me saying just stop worrying about it. Now, Ferguson is where it's at. Baltimore is where it's, geographically located. The middle of New York is where it's geographically located. We're called the heart of it all, but I don't know. With my research, maybe we really are the heart of the terror industry because, like I said, I'll do a whole new video on the oligarch of this city, and I might try to pull some information out of other people regarding people I've worked with and they've worked with in this city, because I've worked under oligarchs in this city. Although I got the idea one of the ones I've worked under at least was really good, and the other people I didn't have much association with, and they seemed better, but they weren't the number one guy who was the bloodline, and we can link to all this stuff. The other people, I forget their names off the top of my head, and I'll have to meet up with some people who work under them to get their names again. And I can't even assure you that I'll get their names to even discuss them. But Lex Wexner, is basically the oligarch of the city. And I'll do another video on that. California thing, though, it's like on the edge. You can afford to cut it off to some extent, minus those port loss, but I'm not sure how good those ports are anyways. They're shipping in a bunch of junk. Yeah, everything's made in China nowadays, yeah. And Trump isn't discussing America building our own cell phone, our own freely open advanced cell phones or anything like that. He's not, for a supposed businessman, he's just moving bucks around in his real life. I don't think he actually has business, invention ideas. That's where American entrepreneurship comes from. People with ideas. He's into like the real estate thing. Maybe he was into it before it was popular, but now that's just a cool trend. But he's not discussing business ideas to actually, instead of bringing businesses back to America, forget those businesses. Toys R Us, they brought in foreigners to ship their stuff overseas, and now they're out of business. We're being taken care of. We don't need to worry about bringing these people back. Forget them. See you later, Toys R Us. See you later, Sears. You people want to act up. You people want to sell out the nation. Go right ahead. Look what's happening. You're gone. You're gone. We can create bigger. We can create better. And that's the one thing with the American landmass, is we can get better. We can get bigger. Is space real? We can just go to a new planet. We don't even need a new planet. If space real, we can develop fucking civilizations that float through space. I wouldn't mind getting off this planet. See you later. I wouldn't be filled with anxiety 24/7. I'd be like, I'm so far away from all that stuff. It used to bother me. It used to terrorize me all the time. But the California landmass technically ain't that important. It holds the Mexico border. Does it? That'd be the dumbest argument ever. It'd make the Mexico border a little bigger. But when the real problem, probably the secondary problem under the seaport loss would be, what was I just saying? would be that many of those people would flood back. Like all the people, and people would be like, oh, it's the hot white blondes, we gotta let them back. It's like, no, those people knew what they were doing when they went to California. I knew as like, I might be a fucking prodigy in book sense and all, in test taking and all this shit, and maybe in some other ways, but if I knew as a child that, it's like a little baby, fucking probably in the embryo stage or something. If I knew that early then, that you don't go to California unless you're gonna, suck some dick for a living, and you suck enough dick, you get to be a star. If I knew that was the majority then, and I was scared of it, I'm sure that wasn't on TV 24/7. You just got a weird feel about it or something. Maybe heard it from a real intelligent person once, and I took the word as gold. But if I knew that as a child, and any 18-year-old or 17-year-old runs off to California knows that they're going out there to be a professional prostitute, and you don't want those people flooding back in. I know how white males come when it comes to tits. When it comes to some white blonde, it's a game over mentally, even for me. I try to fight it off. I try to fight bad things off before they can get close enough to me, so the temptation ain't there. But I can fall to temptation as well, I guess, sometimes. Maybe not as much as others, but then again, I don't like to say words like that, phrases like that, make it appear as if I have an ego issue and I should work on suppressing myself at that point. But the California thing, not much, except for that seaport, which, if you're really intelligent on fiscal status and in world trade, you understand that's actually not much, and that's quite a lot. But everything else, it's got a lot of positives to it. So you don't have to just hate black people when they're riding in their own cities, or anywhere near their own cities, or in bad places that you want out. You already want California out of there. Don't worry about it. Just, I tell you, I when I worry, it brings death about, and it brings misery. And when I don't worry, the world might try to crush me, but things don't get in the way. I'm not sure how much of this world actually works upon Goyim's backs versus how much this world works upon a balance of energy that will always sustain itself. And the world will take care of itself, especially if the humans are gone. It will definitely take care of itself at that point. Humans won't be poisoning it with radiation and stuff. But that applies to like all the energy in the world. The world's on its own natural recycling type situation. Like humans want to act like we invented recycling. I want to act like my dad invented recycling, pretty much. One of the first ones to do it. But the world's been recycling since the beginning of time. We've been recycling forever. I see videos of some white women showing you how to chop a hog and using everything. They'll end up using, in the past they would use everything. They probably use pig skin. They probably still use pig skin for everything, right? They probably use whatever. Every single part of it probably got turned into something. Hooves get turned into what? A necklace? Gelatin? Is that a falsity that gelatin is made out of that stuff? It's probably made for all sorts of stuff. So the recycling thing ain't new. The earth is built upon the recycling thing. If you did nothing, you would recycle into some grass and a tree. And eventually you will, well, you probably won't, because we are like anti-earth. We don't just put our bodies back in the ground. We think we're so egotistical and anti-spiritual that we want put in a box so we can be resuscitated 7,000 years in the future. And rather than just be reborn into a new body with the same soul, we would want that to happen. And we want to prevent the earth from recycling us. But at the end of the day, I'm on a deeper level than just dropping off California. At the end of these empires, no empire has ever survived. And what happens is you start grasping on the straws, and then eventually a really, really, really small group is left alive, and then a really, really small group within that organizes and decides it's time to chart off to the new area. And that's probably exactly the groups who create empire from empire, including UK to America, where we have Captain John Smith. Part of the UK military, traveled the world starting as a child and with the military, and he's well known. You've heard the name Captain John Smith, and he was taken back, and they didn't like him very much after they took him back after the wars because he was helping us. So there's these small groups here and there that are transferring off the power place to place, and they already know that the fall's going to happen, the fall needs to happen, and they just aren't worried. They aren't like stressing like, oh my God, America's going to be so gone. But I love America. It's just land. And you want to argue who the real Hebrews are and all that, or who the real people who wrote the Bible is. When you look into the Hebrew, the so-called Jews stuff, their talk is of just never being nationalist, and that you gotta let go. Like, I'm not saying don't support where you're at, but you gotta know, like, when it's time to move out of your house. Like, my car, I love it. I got it real cheap, low mileage. It's fast. I mean, it's not Lambo fast, and it's not souped up fast, but it accelerates, it gets me places. That's really all that's ever mattered. I just got blessed with something better than usual this time. It doesn't matter if I got an old Toyota Tercel 84, runs like a champ, looks like Goldie the Modi. It was still the sweetest car. Put some stereo in it, you're done for. This thing came with the stereo and everything, and it's all nice, but it's got a little bit of, it has problems stacking up on problems because it's hit a certain age where it's a historical car, and historical cars cost more money to maintain than any other car. So I have to look at, do I want to spend all my money saving a historical car, or do I have other things I want to do? I mean, everyone else liked the car. It grew on me. It took a long time to grow on me, but it did. But I'm at the point now where I could sink like a few $1,000s into making it look new again. But it might be a lot more than that, because I've already looked into it, and certain seals and stuff, if I just want to replace certain window seals to make them look new again, those come with heavy price tags, if you can even find the part and it still exists anymore. And then beyond that, I would have to contract 3D modeling services to fabricate a part or something. A lot of work involved. And work is life. It's not just money, it's life. But you get to the point where with a house will begin to develop some sort of mold or something 10, 20 years. These older houses, they definitely have it. And what happens is eventually, like they did with the Short North area, they got rid of our houses because, the ceiling was collapsing, you got your asbestos in the basement, probably mold down there as well. Everything deteriorates, and it becomes a point where it's not fiscally possible or advantageous to you to retain these things. It's cool to hold on to something old and classical, like the Masons. They kept their temple downtown. I actually helped restore that. And then, not that I'm a Mason, I just got a good job. I told you I work for these elites and stuff. You got to pick and choose what you hold on to and what you just sacrifice as yesterday's trash. If you look at Britain, they have what they have and everything, but their place looks older than ours because our stuff is new. It's the new stuff we invented. It's all the new stuff. Everything in America is all the new stuff. And there's people out there competing with our culture right now, like China, Dubai, and places like that. But our people can just create something even better, newer and better, a whole new age, like a space age type thing. And what happens is you have to get rid of the land you're on, or at least bulldoze it. But you can't bulldoze America, and why would you? There's people who could use it, and we're already going to go to work and fix telephone lines. It's not much different than putting up new telephone lines. Who even uses that? But I mean, back then when that stuff started, lines didn't go underground, and they even could be even more safe and even less maintenance required on everything. See, I mean, right there, we're just brainstorming, ways we can turn a loss into a gain. You got the house. You get it. People actually know this stuff. Like some of my family are electricians, and they rise up real fast in their ranks if they care to. And they could easily start interjecting stuff into this conversation. All of you could. Like I said, we're like inventor type people. We can just invent new stuff, newer and better. And holding on to a lot of this old stuff is just not worth it. So when I was discussing that California stuff in the last video, those of you who oppose it got to think this isn't a new. You must be new to this, because Dr. William Luther Pierce and others, and all Republicans, for at least 30, 40, 50 years, and I would assume now going back 80 years, they've discussed it. I'm almost sure that people realize that the government knew that Hollywood Jews were trying to make America pro-war in the 1940s, and they told them to calm down. So I'm sure there's other people who know that too, and like Rockwell, and then they went to the comic books because they were told not to do that. But the California thing, talking about getting rid of California, is not new, and you guys are talking about it every day. But it's way older than any of you think it is, and it really, other than the seaport loss, there's no loss at all. That place will go bye-bye if you just hand it over. They'll lose one of their main bases. That's their propaganda center. Granted, they control the tech from Israel, and we're their slaves protecting them. But at the same time, our protection over them in Israel, we literally have them encircled by protection, which I wouldn't doubt someone in our government at some point decided these protection laws are actually to monitor Israel. The USS Liberty was monitoring Israel. I assure you of that. They were not Dindus, and they were monitoring Israel. So they knew, and you guys know that they knew now. And I believe that there are people in the government, probably not enough to change it, but there are people who try to put fail-safes in these systems. Without our people over there, without our ships, they have no missile defense system. They just have their walls and their turrets, and one or two missiles take them out. But California is a protected base of theirs. You can talk about getting rid of Israel, but it's illegal inside America to talk about getting rid of New York or California. And getting rid of New York sounds like a pretty dumb idea, because it's like the heart of it all. and any sort of fallout would, people fallout, chemical fallout, would cause real issues. But if Mexicans and blacks want to spend all their energy destroying California or taking it over, you got to decide whether it's worth all your energy to spend all day worrying about that, or spend some time with your children, or find a loved one, or look for a loved one, because if you don't have one, that's probably the worst possible scenario. And just try to look to the future. I swear, I try to think positive. It's not very helpful when the world's crushing you, but I try to think positive, and I don't like try. I'm not like, oh, I gotta think positive. It's just like, it's not gonna do any good if you do anything else. It brings real bad health if you even think negative once. Hell, even if it's a legit negative thing, it's bad to have that negativity in your mind. It starts to affect your body's balance. And California ain't all that. I mean, it is because we're being sold on TV. It is. And they need it to survive, but they don't need it. And they don't really need to survive if they're going to use it for, pedophilia and mass murder and genocide, terror, enslavement, 1984 style, and, encouraging dope dealing doctors to deal fake dope and not natural stuff, and now they need to control natural stuff too. All that, those people aren't like much to cry for. California is not something to cry for. Just most places in America, I would assume at this point, what are you going to do about my state being taken over? You can't. The chief of police is a Jewess. It's taken over. If you just like stop counter protesting blacks, the blacks would take it from them. Oddly, the Jews brought them here on the slave ship, so maybe that's just the way it is when things cycle around. And we can choose not to waste our time worrying about California. And it's just as simple as that.